お前の仕業だったのか。
Good day, I'm your humble narrator SideWaysThinker, and I'm just here with another episode of That There Enigmatic Entity, a series in which I discuss the more uncanny video game characters. This time I'm going to be doing something a bit different. This episode is going to be a two-parter regarding Silent Hill. In this first episode I'm going to be discussing one of the most important characters in the story of Silent Hill, as well as some elements of the cult present in Silent Hill. First, a warning. Due to the nature of this character, and of this series generally, there will doubtless be major spoilers for the Silent Hill series. If you do not want it to be spoiled, stop watching now. Also, I will only be discussing the first 3 Silent Hill games, as those are the only ones whose storylines I consider to be canon. Right, with that out of the way, let us get on with the video. Silent Hill, for the unaware, is a survival horror series published by Konami, set, for the most part, in the titular USA town of Silent Hill. In the games, you play as one of the many protagonists in the series, as they search through the town for their own purposes, as the town shows them horrific visions based on their own psyches, or the psyches of those around them. The first 3 games in the series are regarded by many, myself included, as not only some of the best horror games in existence, but also as containing some of the best examples of interactive storytelling to be found in the entire medium of video games. The early series is also well known for its stunning visual design, brilliantly written characters, and accurate adaptations and uses of real-world occultism. The third game, in fact, contains what I consider to be the best character in the medium, in the form of Father Vincent.
Heather. That's what you're called now.
As I said earlier, I will only be discussing the first 3 games in the series, as they're the only games in the series created by the original developers, Team Silent. Some consider the 4th game, Silent Hill 4 The Room, as a Team Silent game. I, however, do not, for the simple reason that, while developed under the same name of Team Silent, the real creative minds behind the series were busy developing Silent Hill 3, meaning that they had little to no input in the creation of Silent Hill 4 The Room. The Room also contradicts countless rules and story elements set in the 3 previous games, so it cannot be counted as being in the same continuity. As I mentioned earlier, the character we will be discussing today is Alessa Gillespie. Alessa is arguably the most important and influential figure in the story and lore of the Silent Hill series. She's the daughter of Dahlia Gillespie, who in the first game and the events leading up to it was also a very important figure, specifically in the unnamed cult present in the town of Silent Hill. Seeing the supernatural power present in her daughter at a young age, Dahlia opted to attempt to use Alessa as the vessel with which she may summon her cult's demon god into the world. Here we encounter a common misinterpretation of the story of Silent Hill. Many people believe that the events transpired as follows. Dahlia and the other cult members burn Alessa Gillespie alive as part of an occult ritual to impregnate Alessa with the seed of their demon god. This fails as Alessa splits her soul in twain and is thus tormented by a nightmare caused by the demon god for 7 years. Later, during the events of the first game, when Alessa's second half returns and her supernatural power is whole again, she elects to take her vengeance on the town and its inhabitants for burning her and tormenting her, and so projects the nightmare onto the town maliciously. This is in fact false. The impregnation ritual the cult used on Alessa did not in itself involve her ritualistic immolation. Rather, the fire was caused by a malfunction of a boiler in the basement of the Gillespie home, as mentioned in a memo in Silent Hill 1 itself. Given that an article found in the game specifically referenced poltergeists as a supernatural manifestation of negative emotions, it is fairly clear that the fire was a complete accident caused by Alessa's stress during the Also, the idea that Alessa attempted to get revenge on the town is without merit, as it is very clear that Alessa's spreading of the nightmare through the town is entirely unintentional. Dahlia claims to Harry Mason, the protagonist of Silent Hill 1, that Alessa is spreading the Mark of Samael. This is false. The symbol that Alessa is seen spreading throughout Silent Hill is in fact the seal of Metatron. Dahlia claims that if Alessa completed her work, then the world would be swallowed up by darkness. In fact, if Alessa was able to finish the seal of Metatron, the demon god, along with herself in the town of Silent Hill, would be sealed away from reality, thus permanently imprisoning the demon god for eternity so that it could never be born into our world. This, along with various pieces of evidence to be found in the third game, make it obvious that Alessa was a good person, willing to sacrifice herself in order to safeguard the mortal world. At the culmination of events in Silent Hill 1, after reuniting the 2 halves of Alessa's soul, the second half having taken the form of Harry's daughter Cheryl Mason, and the defeat of the larval form of the cult's evil god at the hands of Harry Mason, Alessa's spirit appears briefly in order to give Harry Mason a baby girl before dissipating meeting again. This girl is in fact a reincarnation of Alessa, whom Harry takes and raises as his own daughter, naming her Heather Mason. In this regard, the end of Silent Hill 1 leads up perfectly to the beginning of the third game. While neither the cult nor Alessa have any direct influence on the events of the second Silent Hill game, their presence is felt throughout the entirety of the experience, and indeed the events of that game could never have taken place if not for the cult's practices and Alessa's experiences. The most glaring influence of the cult is in the monster which has since become the poster boy for the series, the ever-infamous Pyramid Head. This creature's appearance is based on a painting depicting one of the cult executioners to be found in the Silent Hill Historical Society building. Not only that, but the malevolent power that remains in Silent Hill after the defeat of the demon god can only be explained as caused by the direct influence of the cult and of their demon god affecting the town while in its larval form in Alessa. However, we will discuss that in more detail in the second part of this two-part episode. Moving on, we now come to the involvement of the cult and Alessa in Silent Hill 3. In Silent Hill 3 you play as Heather Mason, the adopted daughter of Harry Mason, indeed the little girl that he receives at the end of the original Silent Hill. Heather Mason is in fact the reincarnation of Alessa Gillespie, though she does not know this herself. Despite her not knowing her nature, the remnants of the cult do. Due to this, Heather finds herself being pursued by the private detective Douglas Cartland, who was hired by the fanatical cult member Claudia Wolf to find Heather under the pretense of a matter regarding her birth. Douglas is entirely in the dark regarding the existence of the cult and their intentions to use the reincarnated Alessa again to attempt to birth the demon god, whose reincarnated larval form remains dormant inside of Heather.
Alessa, you cannot kill God. I will birth God. If you can't do it, Alessa, I will.
In this game, the constant self-deceit inherent within the cult is made clear, as the cult had elected to alter their own history. Instead of teaching their membership that Alessa had rebelled against the birth of their god, they instead now worship Alessa as a saint, claiming that the only reason that they failed in birthing their god is that a group of pagans barged in and forcibly stopped the ritual, killing Alessa in the process. Despite playing as a reincarnated version of Alessa in Silent Hill 3, there is indeed a point at which you are forced to fight a corrupted demonic manifestation of Alessa. While this may seem to suggest an evil nature on her part, it in fact does the opposite. Several times in the game, Alessa's own views on current events are portrayed, showing that the only reason that her manifestation elected to attempt to kill Heather is mercy. She remembers the pain and suffering that the demon god caused her in her first life, and seeks to save Heather from the same fate, and to save the world from the possibility of a fully born demon god, by killing Heather, thereby killing both her and the resurrected seed of the demon god. At this point, I would normally go into detail regarding several theories, and indeed, there are no shortage of theories surrounding the Silent Hill series. However, I do not need to discuss the theories on this specific topic, because the games make the truth of the matter very clear if you go looking for the information. While at first glance, Silent Hill's storyline in this regard may look ambiguous, with a bit of digging in the first three games, the truth reveals itself. It is a mixture of this ambiguity and a lack of willingness to work to get past it that causes the countless erroneous theories to form around Alessa and the cult. Worry not, however, for in the second part of this two-part episode, I will be talking about something around which there is much theorizing and debating, and for good reason. Well, that's going to have to be all from me for now. I've been your humble narrator, SideWaysThinker, and as always, keep calm and carry on. Good day.